In 1975, a remarkable film emerged in world cinema, centering around a former soldier in the American Navy grappling with insomnia and poor sleep. By day, he worked as a taxi driver, offering a glimpse into the alternative America post-Vietnam War, a nation where people became disillusioned, and soldiers found themselves unsatisfied with the conflict. This war, in which America lost over 58,000 soldiers, serves as the backdrop. While this serves as an introduction, rest assured that the topic will intensify, revealing more about America's experiences. Join us as we recount the story from its very beginning. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. Like many wars post-World War II, the conflict between America and the Soviet Union aimed to assert each as the dominant superpower, leading to territorial occupation and ideological propagation. However, unlike previous conflicts, this war did not yield a clear victor. Instead, it was the landowners who emerged triumphant. Despite enduring over a century of struggle against occupiers, namely America and Russia, the resilient people held steadfast to their land. The conflict traces back to France, renowned as one of history's foremost occupiers. In 1859, France set its sights on Vietnam, viewing it as a treasure trove in Southeast Asia, abundant in marine resources and fertile land for rice cultivation. Exploiting the country's resources without accountability, France subjected the Vietnamese to starvation and denied education to the lower and middle class. Yet, a spirit of resistance burgeoned among the Vietnamese, culminating in guerrilla warfare against the occupier. This resistance persisted through World War II, during which Vietnam confronted not only France, but also Japan, which controlled swaths of Asia during the war. Despite these formidable adversaries, the Vietnamese people continued their struggle for independence. At that time, a folk hero emerged, a champion of Vietnamese independence. His name was Ho Chi Minh, the founder of the Communist Party of the Indochina region. He staunchly supported communism and admired figures like Lenin and Marx, both of whom were fierce critics of capitalism. When Ho Chi Minh learned of France's strategies, influenced by lessons from Hitler, he rallied his supporters and established the Vietnam Independence League in 1941. Employing a tactic famously known as hit and run, they struck at France and Japanese forces, who felt secure but were vulnerable to sudden attacks. Despite the turmoil in Europe and America during World War II, Vietnam remained neglected. However, Ho Chi Minh persevered, declaring Vietnam's independence and continuing the struggle. Upon France's return after the war, Vietnam found itself once again under occupation, reigniting the fight against colonial rule. The Soviet Union, a formidable power at the time, and China, under the Chinese Communist Party, played crucial roles. They wanted to support their fellow communist, Ho Chi Minh. From the depths of their hearts, they sent him tanks, weapons, machine guns, and other essential supplies. Ho Chi Minh welcomed this assistance, but it infuriated the French. Their anger escalated, leading to confrontations. And then there was America, a distant player with its own interests and concerns. The stage was set for a complex struggle that would shape Vietnam's destiny. In this scenario, America and the Soviet Union intervened indirectly in the war. America provided intelligence support to France, while the Soviet Union did the same for Vietnam, akin to the Korean War. The Geneva Conference of 1954 divided Vietnam at the 17th parallel, with the Communist North under Ho Chi Minh and the South under French control. Despite initial hesitation, Ho Chi Minh considered continuing the war in the South until Ngo Dinh Diem declared himself president, backed by America. Diem's rule in the South was marked by harsh treatment of communists, supported by American military and economic aid. Meanwhile, concerns about American intervention grew in the North. Le Duẩn, a prominent leader, emerged in the North, advocating for military intervention to unify Vietnam under communist control. This plan garnered support, with Duan forming large groups of fighters ready for war in the south. Religious differences between the Buddhist South and the Catholic government fueled discontent, prompting many in the South to align with the North. America understood the need for strategic action in Vietnam, but faced the challenge of navigating the complex situation. America assured South Vietnamese generals of support for any military coup. Given the green light, coups became routine, ushering in new presidents. In 1963, President Kennedy's assassination led to Johnson's presidency. A year later, a clash ensued when Vietnamese ships intercepted an American vessel. Despite warnings, it escalated into the deadly Vietnam War, with heavy Vietnamese casualties and no American deaths. Realizing the severity, Johnson escalated American involvement, deploying troops, weaponry, and reinstating the draft to send soldiers to Vietnam. Days passed, and in 2005, the U.S. National Security Agency admitted that the clash involving Vietnamese and American ships was orchestrated. There were no Vietnamese ships. The incident was fabricated to justify U.S. intervention in Vietnam. America opted for military action, but the resilient Vietnamese employed guerrilla tactics, utilizing an extensive underground tunnel network. These tunnels, spanning miles beneath the surface, served as a strategic advantage for the Vietnamese resistance, enabling them to evade detection, launch surprise attacks, and disappear swiftly, frustrating American forces. As anti-war sentiment grew in the U.S., with strong demonstrations in Times Square and across the nation, the toll of the conflict became evident. Soldiers returning from Vietnam bore the scars of tragic experiences, fueling public outrage and calls for an end to the war. The emotional and psychological trauma endured by these veterans underscored the human cost of the conflict, further galvanizing opposition to continued U.S. involvement. The 1973 Paris Peace Agreement aimed to end the conflict through diplomatic means, but the North, feeling disadvantaged by the terms, continued its assault on the South, determined to achieve total victory. On April 2, 1975, the North Vietnamese forces achieved their objective, seizing control of Saigon and effectively uniting Vietnam under communist rule. The fall of Saigon marked the definitive end of the Vietnam War, with the communist regime firmly established across the country. The victory, however, came at a staggering cost, with millions of Vietnamese lives lost during nearly a century of struggle for independence and self-determination. Yet, amidst the devastation and sacrifice, the triumph of the Vietnamese people reaffirmed their unwavering commitment to preserving their homeland and sovereignty, free from external domination and intervention. In January 1968, North Vietnamese forces launched a major offensive, targeting key cities in the south and culminating in the takeover of the American embassy in Saigon. The brazen assault shocked American policymakers and the public, signaling a turning point in the conflict. Despite realizing defeat, America sought an honorable exit strategy.